haven't cleaned up, but I know somebody's going to spot this, as they did last time this happened. How many different types of plants have I just messed about with? What didn't we do in between? We didn't sterilise the scissors. That's what happens when you get tired. You forget silly little things like that. Now, as it happens, we don't have any infections or anything on these particular plants, so I would say the risk was minimal. But nonetheless, why take a risk when you don't have to? But if you think about it, quite a few of those plants never got their roots touched with the scissors. The dendrobium did, but the others didn't. So, no effect. Phew! Sterilise your stuff, it's important. Just because I didn't, or didn't look as though I did that time, didn't matter. As I said, the scissors didn't touch any of the other plants apart from that dendrobium, so no damage done this time. Keep your tools clean, especially if you're changing plants. Right, next thing, pot selection. Size of pot, amount of media you can get in it, and what it's made of, all that sort of stuff. Not just grab the first one you come hold of. And the last thing I want to do is pop one of these in my wine. Now this little one, I haven't cleaned these up yet, I'm just sorting out the pots. That pot is a trifle too big, but it's the smallest one I've got that will hold enough media to not dry out so fast as to hardly be worth watering it. Yeah? There's a volume of media that will be so small it'll work like a mount. It will dry so fast, and these roots need to stay hydrated on this one because quite a lot of them are probably never going to grow. So I can get enough media in there that it will stay moist long enough for these roots to grow into it and get going, and I can keep my eye on it if it dries fast or too fast. That's that little one. Stand up, will you? The only problem I've got with that pot is it's not, let me try and show you. I know that's a dirty pot, but the difference in the clarity of the pot. I'm trying to use these sorts of pots because nowhere near as much light gets through them, and they don't stop, but they really inhibit algae growth in the pot. Whereas that one is quite clear, but it's the only one I've got that's the right size, and it's not going to stay in there too long if it grows. I did qualify that, if. Now, this one, this is, that's a classic example. That's what I'm getting at, yeah? This one is opaque, that one is clear. That will get algae quite quick, that one won't. And I'm trying to avoid these where I can. Can't always do it, because sometimes they just happen to be exactly the right size. See, that one's been used before, it's got sellotape on it, and even though it's been washed and sterilised, I didn't take the sellotape off. So that kiki, that's a nice flat pot. It's not a deep pot, it's a flat pot, yeah? So I won't need to crock that. The whole root system will fit in that quite nicely. Slightly larger than I would like, but this is about to come into growth, which will produce a root system on top of what it's got and a new cane. So once it's in there, it can stay there, probably for 18 months or more, maybe even 2 years. So let's get it in a pot where it can stay. So that's that one, size-wise and type. Now these two little plants, because they're two plants, they're going to take up a lot of surface area. They'll be quite wide as opposed to deep. So consequently, a wide flat pot. And those two will sit nicely in there. Yeah? So that's those. I still haven't found pots for the Dendrobium prima donna yet, but these are all going to get the same media, so I can get these out of the way. So let's get some media sorted. Right, first thing, that was nearly not funny. When you're tired, those two can look quite similar. And even though they're both alcoholic, 70% rubbing alcohol, I don't think it's a good idea to drink that. However, a nice light Chardonnay is. Right, when I got my mixing up media thing out, it already had some in, so that were good. The only thing I don't like is as this is now, the moss that's mixed in is bone dry, which means I'll have to watch the old watering. But effectively I've got a mix of sphagnum, broken up, and small bark. Well, that's what I was going to use anyway, so get on and use it. And I'll just have to make sure it gets an extra good soaking. Now, that has got a good enough root system that it's going to be self-supporting. I know it is. Right, so we'll put some in. I'm not crocking this because this is going to go gently in the pot, and I've already got too much in there. The whole idea of repotting this Comet King set of kikis was to get the base of the plant in the media. Well, perhaps this might have been better in a deeper pot. Now the media is dry, and so as I tip it in, it will naturally fall down in amongst the roots and fill all the holes up, providing I do it a little bit at a time. You chuck a huge big handful in, you'll get bits jam up together and form like a block, and the bit below it's got air spaces, and you've just blocked the path to all these little pieces getting down into every little crevice. Now on some plants I don't mind some air gaps, but not on these. These are young plants. I need every root in contact with media so that every bit of hydration can get into the plant that's possible. I don't want a wet-dry cycle as such, it's not a cattleya. And not only is it a dendrobium that wouldn't mind drying out in between watering, but these are kikis. It's not an adult plant yet. So it would be better if it didn't dry out in between and these roots actively grew continuously. And then they will support any new growths that push out. You wouldn't believe I could use that much media in such a small pot, would you? I have to mix some more up now. But that is sturdy enough that when that's watered, it will be sturdy. But I'm still not right up to the base of the plant yet. I want these root nubbins to go straight into media. The only thing you need to watch, especially with the smaller media, is you don't get too close to the top of the pot. Otherwise, when you pour your water in, you wash all your bark out. I've never done that, of course, ever. See, if this sphagnum was wet, this pushing down would have a better effect, but it's springy because it's dry, but it still allows me to get a bit more in. And then a good watering today, and it will probably need another one tomorrow. That's one done. Watering in will secure that, and once I've watered this, because the sphagnum's dry, I'll press it down gently again and then water it again, and it might even need the media topped up. Now unfortunately I need some more media. I'll be back. I'm back. The wine's going down. And I'm running out of steam. A word. This is the type of sphagnum I use. It's produced by Bees Grow. Supposedly premium New Zealand sphagnum moss. Now this size is about £7. No postage or anything for me because I get it direct from the guy who I buy from, and he brings it to me at shows and things, so I just order it in advance, he brings it, no postage, which cuts down the cost. This is already fluffed up, yeah, comes out fluffed up. On a recent video that Danny did, the next size down from this comes as a brick, a briquette, whatever you want to call it, but it comes as a compacted solid brick. And basically the idea is that you put the whole thing in some clean water and it will swell dramatically. I mean dramatically. And then you fluff it up, and apart from being wet, it ends up exactly the same as this, except for you get about twice as much. So it's actually far more economical. But the best way to deal with that is to soak the whole lot. So you've now got flipping masses of the stuff and it's soaking wet. The only reason I get this size is because it's dry and it stays dry till I want to use it. The other stuff is exactly the same. It fluffs up, it's got long strands in it, and it's exactly the same stuff. It's just to transport it and sell it, it's compacted into a brick. So if you see that offered, it's actually more economical than buying it this way. And what I used to do when I used those bricks was break a bit off or cut a bit off with a sharp knife and just soak that bit. Now okay, you cut some of the longer strands or break some of the longer strands, but there's plenty left. It works. So don't worry about getting that smaller size, because once you actually soak it and fluff it up, you get more than you do in here. So that's the moss out the way, that's that done. Right, let's get this tiny little thing potted up. Now this does have 1 or 2 signs of roots growing, and that's the smallest pot I've got, so that's all it can have. Now this time, because I've mixed the mix fresh, the moss in here is damp. Now although I put it into soak, I do squeeze the excess water out before I mix it in with my dry bark. It's, you could say, you're set in your ways, Roger, but it's just the way that I've found works best. And I have tried other ways. I didn't just try this once and stick with it. I have tried using wet media, repotting with, you know, pre-soaked bark, and I just didn't like it. So I don't do it. That's a preference. You don't have to do what somebody else's preference is. So if you like repotting with pre-soaked bark, then do so. I just find that I get a lot more air gaps if I do that than I do if I do it this way. And that's the only reason I've stuck with this methodology. Now this one's going to get potted a little low in the pot, and that's got nothing at all to do with the plant. It's to do with the amount of media, which I don't want too heavy. As I say, this is an incredibly young plant, whatever it's called. I'll look it up before I post this video and put a pop up. So I'm getting fed up with saying I don't know what this one's called, because I do. It is in my notes. One of the big box orchids, so Beatrix got back to me and identified every single plant in an email. So I have the information, I've just been a bit lazy at getting round to it. So I've got no tag for this at the moment, but virtually all of the other big box orchids have been either mounted or, you know, potted and tagged. So this is the one that isn't. So it's easily identified, if you see what I mean. I know what I'm talking about, even if you don't. Right, these 2 pieces are relatively shallow rooted, but both have some nice roots firmly attached to the pieces of bark. These have been run under the tap, and those bits that are stuck on there are staying there because these have not been in their pot long, and as a consequence that bark's not old. I know that, so I don't need to worry about it being old manky bark getting potted into new media. Again, I'm going to pot these quite low because I want enough media for them to stay hydrated, but I don't want them in media that's so deep it stays wet in the bottom of the pot. I need to put these together. Now my new growth and my new roots are on that part of the plant. This is the older part, but it does have a new growth. So both ends of this plant are in growth. Yeah? And the oldest part of the plant, which has another new growth, this one's growing from all sides. So there's not much I can do about that. It'll just have to be potted with a bit of room. This one, however, is in active growth at one end and not at the other end. So that end can go against the edge of the pot. This end with the roots and the nice new growth can go towards the middle. This one, however, needs to be quite near the middle. So avoiding a new growth, I'm going to butt that one there, like that. So that makes a nice little bush of older and newer growths, and without squeezing it too tight because I don't want to snap any new growths off, I'm going to try and hold that suspended in the air and trickle this media right in under the base. I do not want air gaps, not on a young plant. So just a small amount at a time rather than a great big handful, which could get trapped trapping air pockets. And then trying to hold the plant in the same place and turn it around so that I can get at the other side. Ooh, lovely load of new roots down that side. Let's get them into something, get them going. Strange, I'm putting in a bit of effort to potting plants I'm probably not going to keep. But I might do. If this really is Kingianum the species and not one of the masquerading hybrids that are about, and there's a lot of them, trust me. Even the Aussies have trouble identifying the true Kingianum species. And even in the wild you can't guarantee it because they hybridise in the wild as well. Right, rampant little tykes these are. But if you can get hold of the true Kingianum species, I would suggest you hang on to it, because they're not so easy to get hold of nowadays. There are so many hybrids around that look incredibly similar. They're not the real thing. I've had a chat to RHS judges, or BOC judges as they like to be called, British Orchid Council. It's the governing body in this country that decides how things are going to be done at shows. But some of them like to be called RHS judges. They like that tone. But they are one and the same thing. They are not different entities. That's gone in there quite nicely. Well pleased with that. But at the end of the day, they are long-term experienced, well-trained people, and they have trouble identifying a true Kingianum species. So what hope I've got is like down near the none end rather than the good chance end. Right, that's those two done. The old tag was stuck on the side of the pot, so I'll do a new one for that. I may keep those in the end. I think it might be nice to have a true Kingianum species, if that's what that is. But I won't be able to prove it one way or the other. I haven't got that in-depth knowledge of the intricacy of the flower. It is quite precise. I haven't got that. Right, where are we now? That's it, isn't it? Oh, it wasn't a bad guess, not too much left over. Now the Dendrobium Prima Donna is in 4 pieces. It needs decisions, it needs pot selection, and it needs me to concentrate. And that's not going to happen today because I've run out of all of that. So they're just going to stay bare rooted at the moment. They've been cleaned up at the base, they've had a rinse, they've had their hydrogen peroxide. They can stay bare rooted overnight until tomorrow when I've got a bit more steam. I've done the things I really wanted to do today, and as a consequence I'm going to leave it at that. That one can wait. It's waited long enough, another day or two won't hurt. Because that one's going on a mount, I've got to go and find a mount, clean it up and do this, that and the other. And today I can't be bothered. So those two can wait. And the Dendrobium Prima Donna can just stay bare rooted overnight. And it'll be fine. And quite honestly, it dries out in the pot, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm going to leave that one at that. And this will be a nice interruption to my May updates. Because if I do those one after the other, people are going to get fed up and not watch them. Well, they might do. So this is at least something a bit different to interrupt. And yeah, this won't get posted till tomorrow now. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.